and no charger.
Uh-oh. And we're live. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Bassin Magazine podcast. The Bassin Magazine podcast is the Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. With me, I'm Jay Angel. I'm going to be your host. With me tonight, I have Brad Yoa of Bassin Magazine and Kay Lowe. Kay Lowe is a lady bass angler from the great state of Texas. And Kay is going to fill us in on how she catches Texas giants. So Kay, tell us. Man, I am so jealous. I live one state over, and this fishing is so dramatically different than where you're at. I can't believe it.
Where were you at in Louisiana?
Yeah, Louisiana.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So actually, we fish a lot of tournaments over in Louisiana.
Okay.
I probably fish just as many over there as I do here in Texas. So, it really just depends on the time of year for me. I have caught large bass anywhere from early spring to midsummer to late spring, fall. So right now, kind of doing, we've been to several lakes this year. I just got off of a power plant lake called, and so we were super excited about fishing there. But I noticed that when we got there, the water was right around like 60 degrees already. Sometimes that depending on what side of the lake we were on. So it felt like that first wave spawn already kind of moved in. So I have a different theory about, those spawning fish and pre-spawn. I feel like that first wave that moves up is probably a little bit smaller fish and the bigger ones come later. So we decided to hang with the pre-spawn tactics for the larger bass and fish a little bit. When I think about, catching bigger bass, to me, it's a bigger bass to me isn't something that's more aggressive. They're more laid back. So I think that's just their nature.
Be careful getting out.
You want the regular?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be in shortly. Okay. All right.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the bigger bass are not as aggressive as the smaller bass.
I don't think so. Like they're at most of the time they're not as aggressive. I think it's just their nature. You're talking about a fish that's looked at lures for a long time. You get a good 10 plus pound fish, 5 years. I think they're just not as aggressive. They're used to being motor with loud bait. I just don't think it catches them. I've caught 2 share lunkers in my lifetime that were over 10 pounds. One with a shaky head and one fishing Texas rig with a pink.
You caught a 10-pound plus with a shaky head.
I did. So as a matter of fact, Funk, talking about them earlier, they make shaky heads, and I believe I was their first double-digit fish on one of their shaky heads, and that was at Lake Somerville here in Texas.
So what kind of soft plastic were you using for that?
I was using it was like a green pumpkin. Usually I use a black one, but for some reason I just went to a green pumpkin one, and I was fishing some rocks in like water. And I want to say that was the first. That was like and then
Okay.
June 20.
Okay, there was some interference here. I couldn't hear what kind of soft plastic you were using.
Oh, so with both of my bigger fish like that, my 10 plus pounds, one I was using a Cinco, and it was a Yamamoto 214, and I just it was so funny on the boat with my son. That was when I was captaining him when he was in high school, and thought I'd actually landed into a rock, and I was like, I'm hung up, and he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, and then all of a sudden I felt it kind of beaten down, and I was like, oh, never mind, that's a fish.
Then all of a sudden you felt the head shake, with command.
Pre-fishing was done. Like, no, we're going back, we're done. And then the next year, I want to say it was May, I was using a trick worm on that shaky head, just a green pumpkin trick worm, and I was fishing in some rocks in about 12 foot of water. And, both times with those bigger fish like that, it wasn't like they just hammered on it and took off with it. You just barely felt it. So until you try to set a hook, and then it was a story.
So, Brad, you've caught several fish over 10 pounds. Was that your experience with them too?
I've caught 2 fish over 10 pounds, not several.
Okay.
Both of my fish that I caught kind of just laid on the water and just were dead. They didn't. There wasn't this big explosive. Oh my gosh, this is a month. It's just like, oh, what did I snag? What did I hook? I've got a 12.2 and a 10.5 over
Yeah.
10.
So like I had one that was 11.08, and I literally thought that I had snagged into a big boulder out in the water or something. I was like, crud, here we go. Yeah, they just kind of laid. But like I said, I've caught some 8s and 9s as well, but they were on jigs or shaky heads. I have never caught a really large fish on a moving bait. I've caught some 7s on frogs, but I have a theory on that as well. So it's just depends really.
So in the pre-spawn area, our pre-spawn time of the year, what is your go-to confidence bait?
So that's kind of going back to like what I said before. Now, I will say, depending on how deep I'm fishing. So when I'm fishing pre-spawn tactics, normally I'm hitting those highways where those bass are going to be moving into those coves. So I have done this several ways, and I've finally invested in a live scope. So I'm, one of those people too. So
One of those.
one of those people too. And so I have caught fish in pre-spawn depending on the weather. So if it's right before a rain, I'll throw a moving bait. If it's after a rain, I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Depends on the pressure as well. I might throw a Carolina rig with a brush hog on it. I may be throwing a chatterbait. I may be throwing a deep cranking bait. I might throw a shaky head if it's around a bridge that, a creek channel runs down. So it just really depends on what we're looking at as far as the pressure, what we're looking at as far as the depth, where the creek channel's running, how the weather is, everything like that for me changes, and my baits change. If it's right before a cold snap, hey, they're going to be active, and I'll throw something that's moving for a reaction bite. But if it's, cold snap's already happened, then I'm slowing it down, and I'm probably just going to throw a sea rig or a shaky head.
Okay.
Is that based on experience that you've been in those situations, or is that based on editor knowledge?
No, so that's based on my experience. So I'll be honest with you, I don't watch a lot of TV or videos as far as fishing goes. And it's not that I don't trust what other people are saying. It's not that I don't want the knowledge, but I've never been that person. I don't have a lot of time to just sit down and look at things. So that's always been something that I've went out and worked for and figured out on my own, was how those work. And trial and error, and sometimes so
we have a question from the audience. This is Cajun Rob Fishing. Cajun Rob is a great friend of the Bassin Magazine podcast. He watches every single one of ours that we've ever done.
Hi, Cajun Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Cajun Rob says, Kay, what is your best pattern for muddy water in the spring?
Oh, muddy water in the spring. Oh, well, you're going to get on my frog kick here. So it really depends on like where you're at. I fish all over the U.S. So if I'm fishing in Texas and it's springtime and I've got water over 65, and it's muddy water, I'm probably going to be throwing a black frog or maybe a white-bellied frog. I love it right after it rains to throw a frog in some muddy water. With that being said, again, it's just going right back to where you're at, what the water temperature is, how it's looking out there. After a rain and you've got dirty, muddy water, then, normally I'm throwing right up against the bank with a frog. Now, northern states is a little different story. So, but yeah, down here, if Cajun Rob is from Louisiana, which I think he might be.
No, he's from Kentucky.
Oh, well, okay. Well, never mind. Then that just, so, but no, it's down here in Texas. It's always going to be picking up that frog, especially anytime during the spring. And it's muddy water like that, dirty, I'm throwing it against the bank. But if it's, clear water or it's just barely stained water, I don't work the banks always or the structure with my frog. I might pull it 6 feet off of the bank or so and work my frog that way. And I like flipping bushes. So I'm going to tell you, I'm a bank beater right now. I love beating the banks. But that's Texas.
So being a bank beater, what's deep water to you?
35 feet. I really do.
Woo! That's deep.
That's deep. To me, that's way deep. I'm a bank beater, and I don't fish under like over 15.
Well, so
there is no 15 feet deep here down here.
I've had to experience lakes like Lake Hickory, North Carolina, and you're looking at 100 foot of water. So this time of year in Lake Hickory, North Carolina, and it's 28 degrees outside.
Totally different. I get that.
Then 35 foot is where I'm fishing. But in Texas, I usually don't fish water, and that's pushing it.
I understand that for sure. Situation. I mean, yeah. I'm not, well, I don't know. They had the Bassmaster Classic here in Oklahoma at Grand Lake in Grove, Oklahoma. And, I mean, most of those fish were caught in 3 feet of water, and it was February and snowing on our deck. So,
it was the same thing the other day whenever my son and I were fishing over at Lake Conroe. And it was so cold outside. Like, I couldn't get my gloves off. Like, my hands were freezing. It was below freezing out there. The water temp, though, was like the low 50s. The week before, we had seen some fish on beds there, some smaller fish on beds, and they were committed to their beds. They already had that little middle of it. And I was like, man, well, then that cold snap happened, and they just kind of locked up, and everybody was like, oh, you can find them in the shallow. Well, we did. I mean, we caught just as many shallow as we did that weekend, but we just had to finesse because they were just kind of locked down because of the. So.
We love tips and tricks for Bassin Magazine readers. Give us a tip for a lockdown fish on a bed. Not necessarily that scenario. It's kind of weird that they're already on a bed right there, but.
Mm-hmm. So a lockdown fish on a bed. So I'm going to be the first to tell you that I do not love to pull a fish off a bed. It makes me feel bad, I do. Now, if I'm in a tournament and it's some serious business, like we're probably going to go find a bed. So my best way with that usually is just throw in a bubble gum colored trick worm. And if I can't get them to take it, and I'll throw it and throw it and I'll throw it and I'll throw it. If I can't get them to take it, I might throw a white jig in there with a white trailer on it. And if I can't get them to take that either, and this actually happened the other day, we were just pre-fishing. I was like, man, what is she going to bite on? She's not bubblegum. I just wanted to see if she would just take it. And so I threw a 214 Cinco wacky rigged that Yamamoto makes. It's a 214, and that's the color of it. So it was more of a natural color for them. And second time I threw it in there, I mean, I've thrown like 20, 30 times. The second time I threw it, she did not want that. So I've used different tactics with it. So it just really depends. Sometimes they're aggravated enough you can throw whatever and they're going to take it. But usually my go-to is going to be a bubblegum color trick worm. That pretty bright pink orange color. So
for you, it's only males on the bed, not the moms.
Yeah. Moms off the beds, it's just one of those. I mean, but in Texas, your big bass month here in Texas is in March.
Okay.
And so we've got, the share lunker, the Budweiser share lunker program here, which is like 13 plus pounds. 44% of those share lunkers, I think it was last year, was 44%. Those were caught in March here in Texas. So that's kind of like the big bass month, and that's usually when that second wave of spawn goes. But, it just really depends. I mean, your best chances of catching a really big fish in Texas are between, January and April. And that's just facts, like paper facts. And that's
facts.
Jigs. It's on plastic jigs in shallow water. I mean, it's just how it is. Now, I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen because Rayburn just produced a 41-pound bag on 5 fish with the Outlaw Outdoors tournament. So you know, they're killing it over there. And I'm sure they were fishing brush piles or something like that. But still, at the end of the day, I guarantee you it was probably, if it wasn't a deep crank, it was probably a rig or something like that. Something a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Are
tell
you
you
an
what,
A-rig person?
So, no, I don't love them. I fish them when I need to. When I was first learning my life scope, I used my A-rig so I can kind of get dialed in with it because that's a new tactic. I'm telling you, I am old school all day long. I started fishing when I was little with my grandfather. We didn't have nothing like that. So,
yeah.
no, I mean, I literally used just GPS on my boat until probably the last 2 years. And an A-rig was something that I went to so I could learn my live scope. Well, now I've kind of gotten used to it because of my live scope. So Lake Whitney I think it was year before last fishing a championship, I just really hammered on a lot of them on the A-rig. But I have, I do things a little different maybe than others. I don't know how they're A-rigs, but I like to put a different type of bait in the middle of that A-rig and then kind of surround the rest of them with a normal size. But I don't know.
I dip two of mine, the middle one and a different one in chartreuse. And if I'm catching fish on those, then they're all chartreuse
Exactly.
or vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let the fish tell you what they're eating.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's why I try different colors, but usually it's that center one that I try to keep different just to see what's going on there. And I might
Yeah.
do one more just to see the fun way. But I have done that and caught it just on those two different baits. And I'm like, all right, all of them. They're all going this
Yeah.
color right now. So yeah. A-rigs are fun, but they get heavy after a while.
They get heavy. You got to have the right equipment.
I'm getting up there in age, so them shoulders don't hold up all day long fishing with an A-rig.
So being from Texas, I travel and fish. I've fished all over. People always say, "Oh, what's your favorite place to fish?" Well, if I tell them an out-of-state lake, oh, really? So give me your Texas state favorite place and give me your traveling state favorite place and why.
So I'm going to tell you this, and I'm probably going to get roasted by some of the locals by not saying Sam Rayburn Reservoir. I do love that lake, but my most absolute favorite Texas lake is probably going to be Lake Somerville out of Brenham, Texas. That lake is just, both of my double-digit fish have come out of that lake. I have went there time and time again, and just, it was nothing to catch a 20-pound bag every time. I went there for a week one time and we caught so many 4+ pound fish that I was tired of catching largemouth bass and started playing with the schooling white. So that's always been a good lake for me. I would say traveling.
Yeah. Well, guys, Brad's phone just died. He's told us he only had 8%. So,
Bye, Brad. But I would say traveling with Lake Hickory, North Carolina is probably one of my most favorite lakes.
it's a deep water lake.
It is,
What
but
attracts you to a deep water lake?
I like fishing on the rocks there. I mean, I love fishing rocks.
Yes,
It's
so do I.
one of my favorite things. I like to be able to finesse a good shaky head through those rocks, just bouncing it around. That's probably one of my favorites. Lake Chickamauga, that's one that I love as well. I haven't fished it as much though.
That was one of my favorite televised moments in bass fishing when Brandon Polinick hooked into a 9-pounder there, and it jumped, and the fish came up and did one of these.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that cameraman that's a shot of a lifetime. That is one of my favorite moments in bass fishing. That's
I'll
been
have to
televised.
look that up now. I do like Caddo Lake over in Louisiana as well. I mean, which it's Louisiana, Texas. Depending on if you're coming in on the river system, you can come in on the Texas side. Otherwise, you come on the lake side. It's going to be in Louisiana. But that's one of my very most favorite lakes because they've got a lot of cypress trees there.
Yeah, I do like cypress trees.
Yes, absolutely.
It's probably where most of since I live down here, it's where most of my fish come from is either jigging or Texas rigging. If I can find a cypress tree that has a hole in it.
Right. So we call like what's called trees, and on Caddo Lake, you may have thousands of cypress trees in this one. and you know that there's fish holding there. So like if I see like water moving around somewhere that creates an eddy on the other side of a cypress tree, like I'll throw in there. But otherwise, I'm looking for something different. And when I say different, I'm looking for that money tree that's holding the fish. So if I see like a couple of trees that are, you know, a creek swing may run through it, that runs up against a bank, I guarantee I'm going to throw in there before I throw about just about anywhere else. And that's just, again, theory thing. And I find stuff like that, and I might catch 15 or 20 fish out of one hole, just one after another, and then turn around and let it reset and come back to it later and do it again.
Wow. Well, down here in the swamp, you know, I look for things like shadows, a group of cypress trees that are real close to each other, holes in a cypress tree, like you said, water running into a cypress tree.
Yeah, once it
fish the eddy, and you know, because the water gets parted, and then
absolutely.
Down here in the swamp, you have to find moving water. If you can't find moving water, it's going to be a grind.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen that several times. Like fishing Red River. I used to love to fish the eddies there, or where like water was going into like a creek area that may be like rocked up, like not dammed all the way, where it's just got maybe a few inches of water running over the top of it and just really laid into them and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun.
So this lake in North Carolina that's really deep.
Mm-hmm.
Are you catching spotted bass there?
Yes, there was a lot of spotted bass there. And, you know, it's not like when I fished there, I want to say it was my rookie year with the Lady Bass Anglers Association. And that was my very first like pro tournament. So it was like, man, I'm not really sure what to do here. This is kind of a new lake for me. This is new everything. So I can say that not a lot of us brought in a lot of big fish. I mean, there was a lot of spotted bass, but they would just be grouped up, you know, on one main lake point that's got a rocky bottom underneath it. So there was mostly spotted bass turned in. They have largemouth too, but mostly spotted bass.
Wow. And what was your favorite presentation for these spots in deep water?
That was a shaky head and a Carolina rig. And there were times like, so when I'm throwing in rocks like that, I like to use a round shaky head. It doesn't get caught up as much. And sometimes, I want to say a couple times, I threw Texas rigged worms. Yes, exactly. Perfect.
What I like about this is, I don't know if you, boy, you can see that it's a flat head, so it'll sit up like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are something familiar. I do love throwing a shaky head. It's one of my favorite. But if I'm throwing in rocks too, and I'm using, you know, a Texas rig, then I'm not pegging that Texas rig, because you're just going to end up getting stuck and breaking off. So
yeah, but a non-pegged Texas rig has its own set of problems, though.
Well, my rigs are some of my favorites, because I think it's called a Texas rig for a reason. I'm sure a lot of people in Texas use them, but you know, there's nothing to me like flipping some flooded buckbrush. One of my favorite things to do. So the Texas thing, I guess, I don't really know.
Boy, you cast right into buckbrush?
I'll flip into it. Mm-hmm. I sure will. Or if it's that time of year where I'm going to pull my frog out, then, you know.
Yeah, that's casting over it.
Or I'll put it in the middle of it. But at Lake Merville here in Texas, we had a women's bass tour tournament, and I didn't have a single scoreable fish in the boat because it's a slot lake, and it's a smaller lake. And I picked up a big swim bait and threw it into some button willows that I probably should not have thrown it into. And as soon as it hit that water, a giant just come and got it, and it had me wrapped up in like 46 trees. I'm halfway off the boat with one foot on the trolling motor, and the rest of my body is hanging off the side trying to get her out, and finally it just snapped.
Oh.
With my $50 or $58 swim bait attached. I was sick over it.
Was that a hard swim bait or a soft plastic?
So I don't remember the brand of that, but it mimics a lot of KGB has with this. They're wooden. So, and
Okay.
it was a large one, very hand painted and beautiful. And I'm going to probably miss that. And I cannot find.
Let me grab something here real quick.
Go ahead.
Oh, come on. Whenever I want to grab something, everything else wants to come too. Good Lord. This is my favorite hard swim bait.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
This is a dual Realis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think I'd cast this into what you were saying you casted yours into.
Well, normally I don't cast swim bait into stuff like that, but I just felt like, I don't know what I was thinking that day. Thankfully, I turned around and threw a poplar on a point and caught 3 fish back to back that weighed 18 pounds. And I got lucky to win it the last 15 minutes of the tournament.
That must have been like post spawn.
That would have been in May or June. So yeah, it would have been post spawn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love throwing topwater. It's probably my favorite thing.
That's when it's my favorite time to cast these big swim baits is post spawn when they get off their beds and they are hungry, particularly the big girls.
Yeah, well, because they're all feeding on perch and crappie and
big old shad like this thing.
Oh, or that, yeah. They're getting
big old shad.
Mm-hmm. But normally with those conditions, like I don't know, my frog is probably my favorite thing to throw post spawn.
Okay. So in most of the Texas lake, what is the main forage?
So we have hydrilla, which is probably not a great thing, but we have lots of different types of grass, buttmulls, buckbrush, cypress trees. So we have a little bit of everything. We've got a lot of different structures that we can fish. I love fishing the grass with what's called a Wesley Warhead 1.0, and it's a chatterbait that Funkbuster makes, and it's built. It's got a football jig head, and then the blade kind of beats the head, so it just makes this really cool sound.
Thump, 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 thump.
And so pulling that through the grass is just, I mean, I've got a lot of big bites off of throwing that style chatterbait through grass. We do a lot of fishing, but
do you have thread fin shad or?
We do ghost shad. We have all kinds of different stuff. We have it just depends on what part of the state you're in. I mean, it's Texas,
such a huge state. You're right.
You go over to like OHIV, you're not. What are they called? Mud puppies, I think is what they're called. I caught more at OHIV the first time I ever went there off of this mud puppy looking mimic bait because they have mud.
Those are like salamanders, and those things, the real mud puppies actually bite.
Yeah.
Because when I was a boy, I used to catch those with nets in the streams and then take them to local ponds where there were bass and use them for bait. Yeah. And when we would try to put hooks in them, they turn around and bite us.
Oh yeah. I've only seen like pictures of them. I've not actually ever seen one in real life. So when I found out that it had mud puppies, there was I believe it was V&M made a bait that mimicked that, and I just started picking them up and throwing them on an A-rig and started hammering those fish. But
yeah. You see, I'm old enough. That's how I grew up doing stuff like that, rather than
I'm not that far behind you, Jay. I'm just saying.
I just consider myself to be very fortunate that I was born in the 60s and we didn't have these.
Well, I was born early 80s, so we didn't have those either, but we stayed outside for Sunday. We didn't come in the house ever.
My parents wouldn't allow me in the house.
No.
Get outside. You don't need to be in here.
Exactly. We were out working cattle, or we were I would be at the river with my grandfather running trot lines. He had a fish.
Yeah, I was fishing, man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or hunting, depending on the time of the year. But man, so what trail are you going to follow this year, Kay?
So probably overbooked myself this year, but I'm fishing a good bit. My oldest son, which is 22, came back from Maine after being gone for 5 months, and he was a All-American. High high school, but after he graduated, went off to work, he didn't fish as much. So now that he's home, we're going to fish a couple of trails together. So we're fishing Cast, Southeast region. We're fishing. We're probably going to hit up Team Trail a little bit, Texas Team Trail a little bit. We're fishing Funk Buster Team Trail together.
Okay.
I'm probably going to jump into a few of the Toyota series this year. I'll be fishing with Lady Bassin Association Pro Bass Tour, and then I'll be fishing Women's Bass Tour, the South region. So,
well, good.
those are just a few. There's a few more, but I'm just like, I can't commit because there's so much that we've got that we're fishing this year. So it's every weekend over the next 3 months. I'll be on a water fishing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
See, and that's the reason I got into tournaments, because it just kept me on the water all the time and constantly challenged me to take what I know to the next level.
Well, I really love for the camaraderie.
Yes.
With members, like I can't get enough of it. Travel to different places. We're not always at the same lake every single time, and I enjoy helping. The other ladies, they have trouble finding fish. I'll give them my pole and my baits. I just like to see people catch fish. I don't care if I win or lose at the end of the day. I'm competitive, but I'm not to the point that I don't want to see somebody else succeed.
Yeah, you're not going to break rods if you lose. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
I have seen it happen.
Fun.
We have another question from the audience.
Yeah.
It says favorite shaky head and plastic bait that you use.
So my favorite shaky head is going back to that Funk Buster shaky they have. They're funkbuster.com. And they're one of my sponsors, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a person that's going to promote anything that I don't believe in. I have turned things down many times that I just didn't like. And the reason why I use that shaky head is because it's my confidence shaky. You catch a double digit fish on a certain type of shaky head, you're going to want to continue using it. And turned around and used just a regular trick worm. Line Taming Serum, they've come out with some baits that have worked well with me, that I've used. I usually like to use a black trick worm, solid black. It doesn't matter where I'm at. V&M's got some good.
Solid black, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said you were old school. That is old school right there.
What is that?
Solid black. That goes back to the days of the man's jelly worm. I mean, I've been using solid black, soft black since the 70s, And I'm not saying anything bad about that. It's just that is old school. I love it.
Yeah, I won't hardly use any other color as far as a trick worm goes. If I'm using a long trick worm, I will not. Almost 10 times out of 10, I'm using a solid black. If it's a Cinco style worm, Texas rigged or wacky, I have a go-to 214 that Yamamoto makes, and I do not deviate from that color because I just have so much confidence in it. And I honestly am a believer of being confident in the baits that you're using. So
I'm looking that up right now.
Yeah, look up the 214. So that color is it's smoke. It's got black flake, or I wouldn't call it flake. It's got black little dots in there, but it's got chartreuse and in it. And so that smoke color it doesn't look like a smoke color. It almost looks like a green pumpkin whenever you have that bait in your hand.
It has some blue flake in it too.
It does. It has blue and chartreuse flake in it. But that smoke,
black, blue, gold, soft. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, I've not been to a lake, and I test this color bait on every single lake I go to. Every single lake I go to, I test this Cinco bait, this 214 color by Yamamoto, and every single lake I've been to, I have caught fish on it. And I don't know why. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense, but I think it's just because it's versatile. It's got the green pumpkin look. I don't know.
Yes.
It's just perfect.
Yeah. My favorite wacky worm color is some kind of variation of the green,
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I have no brain right now. I cannot have this job and have no brains. It's just not working.
It happens. Sometimes we get a little overwhelmed.
Yeah. Anyways, a nice soft, natural color,
Mhm.
and it works
Hey,
every place I've fished, and I fish all over the country.
I'll
I
fish
mean,
natural color at muddy water as well.
in fact, my biggest bass ever came on. Yeah, my biggest bass ever came on. Oh shoot, a yum dinger, 4 inch, and he was just a hair over 7. But up north we don't get big. You don't get 10-pounders in Illinois,
Right.
but a 7-pounder in Northern Illinois is a giant. That would be a shearlunker fish if Illinois had the shearlunker program.
Oh yeah.
A
So
7-pounder, they just don't grow up there.
they do the 10+ share lunkers here, which they'll give you like a free replica of, but Budweiser share lunker program is 13+. So yeah.
That's all I
Mm.
got to say about that.
Well, you're just gonna have to come over to Texas and do some fishing.
I'd love to do that. In fact, things are getting better for me. So yes, I
Well, when you get
start traveling
on
again.
down,
What did you say? I'm sorry. You got to.
I said, well, whenever you get ready to come to Texas and fish, you just let me know. I'll take you out in the boat with me, and we'll go do some fishing in Texas.
Man, thank you.
Well,
That sounds fun. Well, Kate, do you have any shout outs you'd like to make?
yeah, I just want to give a shout out to my teammates over at iBass 360. I can't say enough good things about them, and they are a worldwide company that have done so much to me in aspects of helping promote the sponsors that help me out. So a little bit about them, basically, that they promote community-minded anglers, provide a network that introduces anglers to sponsors and sponsors to anglers. They give a good platform for those anglers. They do a lot of volunteering and helping out. They support, breast cancer awareness. They support women's team trails, which is a really big deal to me. Not saying that it's just a man's world to fish, but women sometimes lack confidence to go up and fish against the men. iBass 360 has been there to offer their own prize money to the top, finishing team that's all female. If you go to their website, ibass360.com, they have like merch, you can find different types of baits, but they provide timely industry news. They'll talk about lake profiles. They give tour results, traveling tips, different type of fish species profiles, reviews of baits, rods, reels. You can find just about everything on there. They do a lot of blogging. A lot of us that are on the pro team do a lot of blogging, but they support their anglers, and we really want to make a difference in the fishing community. And if there's somebody out there that wants to make a difference in the fishing community, they need to let us know. We'll get them in touch with iBass 360. And like I said, they're just a big help to everything. They do a lot of advertising, really gets a lot of names out there. And it saves us that are so busy constantly traveling some time on the work. Eric and Rob are just amazing, amazing, good people. So yeah, just a special shout out to them.
Oh, okay. Wow. Would you like to shout out any of your other sponsors?
Funkbuster Baits. Again, that is a veteran-owned, family-ran business that they have shown myself and my son, both sons, just so much love. If I'm out of something, they don't have a problem running it straight to me, or I'll go run up there and pick it up. And they're, a good 3 hours away. They can customize colors. That is my favorite type of chatterbait is their Wesley Warbird. So they make spinner baits, shaky heads, line taming serum. One of those that I can't get away from those guys. I have so much line taming serum. I talked to John Adams the other day that owns the company, and I was like, I need to make an order, but I've got like 46 other things of line taming serum just sitting around because I've always stayed to make sure that I was on stock. Because every once in a while when you get bad memory in a reel, you need something or you're going to have to cut that out. So serum helps with that bad memory. Get it in the reel, keeps you from getting locked up too much. So other than that, those are my people. And
I found that if I have a new I found that if I have a new reel, if I put some
Mm.
of that line tamer on it, it works a lot better.
Oh, good. Oh, so
I don't know why that makes a difference.
I don't either, and I'm sure John's probably explained it to me before, but I just once you get bad memory on that line, it's done. I mean, you're gonna have to cut it out if you don't have some LTS. So, very much appreciative to his company that's done that, and they have like different scents that you can put on your baits, which I love their scents. They have anise, they have garlic, different things like that. So, some good places for everybody to check out. And again, I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't believe in those, and that's
Oh,
my go right there.
just a quick story about that anise oil. That's old school too, because I can remember when I was a boy smelling the soft plastic lures that Dad bought, and they smelled like anise oil. So I went out and bought some anise oil, and the night before we went fishing, I put them in a little cake pan and soaked all of my soft plastic baits in that anise oil.
Yep.
Mom woke up to make us breakfast, and she's like, "What is this? What?" And then she brought me into the kitchen. What is this? I'm like, "It's anise oil."
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? The whole
Oh,
house smells like licorice now.
yeah, exactly. Well, see, I like licorice though. Like licorice.
That's so do I, but why do you do these things?
I smell.
If you're gonna do this again, you that's what the backyard's for. Okay, point taken. Yeah.
I guess it's better than garlic, right?
Yeah, I could have used garlic because nowadays the garlic, yeah,
Yep,
that's a
absolutely.
big thing. Well, Kay, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to thank everybody for logging on to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Guys, Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. We'd like to thank Kay for coming on. Also, guys, it's Wednesday. Make your plans. Go fishing this weekend because remember, you only get to do this once. And Kay, please stick around. I'm going to end the podcast now.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, you guys.